11 years ago this week, back in 1988, one of the top hits in the USA was Shattered Dreams by a band that shattered apart after one album because no one in the group could agree on what to do next. I'll have details and that top hit after this. Hello again, and welcome to American Top 40. My name's Kasem, and we're about to count down the 40 biggest hits in the USA. According to the official Billboard chart, these are the records you're buying and radio stations are playing all over America. Now, coming in at number 39, here's a song by two Englishmen and one American who call themselves Johnny Hates Jazz. That's their name. They've already had 3 top 5 hits in the UK. Their first one here in the USA is called Shattered Dreams.
Casey's Coast to Coast.
Now we're up to the new band who got their record deal after auditioning at London's most famous jazz club. And they can't stand jazz. They're a trio made up of 2 Englishmen, Wynford Datchler and Calvin Hayes, and 1 American, Mike Nocito. Now, most groups get a recording deal by making a demo tape, sending it out to record companies, and waiting for the phone to ring. Sometimes they wait forever. But not these guys. Wynford Datchler says, "We didn't see any point in spending a fortune on a demo tape. Companies get hundreds of them every week, and they only end up in the rubbish bin." End of quote. So the band took another approach. They booked London's most famous jazz club, Ronnie Scott's. A jazz club. What could be a more perfect showcase for a group that called itself Johnny Hates Jazz? They invited just one label, Virgin Records, and the group played an acoustic set on piano, guitar, and vocals. Believe it or not, Virgin Records signed them on the spot. And listen to this. In the year that followed, they had 3 top 5 singles in Britain, and their album titled Turn Back the Clock debuted on the entire British album chart at number 1. Now, here in the States, their first single went all the way to number 2. Very unusual success story.
American Top 40.
From Hollywood, where the palm trees all mambo to a brave new beat, I'm Shadoe Stevens, and the weekly countdown get down to the most popular music in America. At number 38 is another debut, and it's by the new trio Johnny Hates Jazz. Their singer, Wynford Datchler, says when he was 13, he was practicing for his current career, but he didn't realize it at the time. You see, when Clark was attending school, he'd cut class. He'd sneak right off to play piano in the school's chapel, and this didn't exactly impress his teachers. Well, Clark says they never took the time to listen to what I was doing. They were more concerned that I was missing lessons. Well, now here's Johnny Hates Jazz featuring Wynford Datchler, and rolled in the countdown with their second hit song, I Don't Want to Be a Hero.
American Top 40.
Face forward, hair blowing in the wind, counting down and grinning, I'm Shadoe Stevens. And now we're up to the hit song, I Don't Want to Be a Hero. It's by the trio from London, Johnny Hates Jazz. What they really hate is violence. They think there's too much of it on the movie screen, and that's what inspired them to write the song. Singer Wynford Datchler says, quote, "The song is a backlash against movies like Rambo or movies by Schwarzenegger or Chuck Norris that portray violence as a macho thing to do. I think it's totally sick, and I can't believe the world is lapping this stuff up." He goes on to say, "I'm not a moralist, but I think it's pretty obvious when something's going drastically wrong with the world that the media doesn't give us very good lessons with things like Rambo." Clark says he wrote this song's lyrics from the perspective of a conscientious objector, and he knows that taking on Rambo and other heroes may not win in popularity contests with some people. They might see this as a cowardly song, but Datchler sees it as a humanitarian song.
Casey's biggest hits.
6 years ago this week, back in 1988, one of the biggest hits in the USA was Shattered Dreams by a band that shattered apart after one album because no one in the group could agree on what to do next. It was back in 1988 that this British trio leaped onto the charts with their first hit. The 3 members had had plenty of disagreements in the studio making that first record, but they managed to get it out. But when it came time to do a second album, they found they couldn't agree on anything. They argued about songs, about playing, about who should produce them. They finally agreed on one thing, that they couldn't agree on anything. And so they called it quits. But they did leave us one big hit, a song that 6 years ago this week was one of the biggest hits in the USA.
Casey counts them down.
Here's a hit by a band that fell into the shadows after a car crash in 1992. All 4 members of Johnny Hates Jazz were injured in the crash. and one of them was hurt so badly he spent a year in a body cast. By that time, the band members had called it quits. But they did leave at least one enduring hit. Johnny Hates Jazz and Shattered Dreams. I'm Kasem. Now, on with the countdown.